Another week has passed since Darling in the Franxx episode 15, and despite leaving off on potentially the best episode in the series, the creator saw fit to torture us and make us wait an additional week to finally see the continuation. In light of this delay, I felt I finally had the time to make a video I've been wanting to make since the beginning of the series, and that is examining just how many differences I could find between Darling in the Franxx's anime and manga. As the series progressed, I had heard more and more about the manga deviating from the anime, and it only made me more and more interested to finally take a look myself. So that's what we're going to be doing today, but before we do, I should let you guys know that today's video is actually sponsored by Amino Apps. Now your first thought might be, sponsor? When did you get so big and important? In which I would reply, approximately 2 days ago. Your second thought, however, will hopefully be, what is this app? Well, it's for exactly what most of you come to my videos for, a place where you can talk with like-minded people who enjoy the same things you do. Amino is a network of communities for just about everything on the planet, anime, movies, video games, where you can browse a variety of fan-created content and connect with people who share your passions. I've been having a lot of fun just going through the Darling in the FranXX community, enjoying the memes and seeing what people have to say about the special behind-the-scenes episode we got this week. A link will be in the description so you can try out the app yourself. Feel free to follow me and vote in a poll I created in the Darling community, asking whether episode 13 or 15 is the best episode in the series so far. Oh yeah, I'm breaking out the hard questions now. With all of that being said, let's get into the differences proper. Let it be known that I'm not necessarily going to be going into the nitty-gritty details, as there are a lot of insignificant changes that more or less don't mean anything. Mixed around dialogue, shuffled scenes, and even euphemisms exclusive to the manga, oh boy. This will be focusing on the more substantial differences that stood out to me while reading. One interesting thing to note before beginning is that the manga is actually drawn by Kentaro Yabuki, who actually already has experience drawing long pink-haired devils with his Toe Love Ru fame. If you know anything about that series, you'll know that it is very ecchi, and so his style has certainly been injected into the Darling storyline, as there are many sequences of nudity and fan service that were not seen in the anime. Just something interesting to note, I guess. Also, just keep in mind that some of these changes will not be the most mind-blowing things in the world, and the really interesting differences and comparisons between the manga and the anime don't really start occurring until the first real battle with the Klaxosaurs. So just keep that in mind if you think some of these early differences don't seem that important. Starting directly at chapter 1, in the beginning, after the brief flashback sequence with 02, we get a small exposition scene regarding the nature of the Klaxosaurs and the state of this society. It definitely paints the picture of what kind of world we're living in very clearly, as opposed to its animated counterpart, which kind of just throws you into the universe and leaves you to figure out these things on your own. And of course, I'm a proprietor of visual storytelling, so I do prefer this method as opposed to just being told everything at the beginning. Moving on to chapter 3, where Hiro and 02 are eating breakfast together, we actually get an interesting line from Hiro that alludes to something that we don't find out for a while in the anime. As Hiro reflects on 02's well-being when she was piloting the Strelitzia, he thinks to himself that she was so injured the other day, and yet she's already completely recovered now. And of course, this is hinting at the fact that because of her Klaxosaur blood, she has the ability of regeneration, something that we don't see to full effect or even hinted at for quite some time. Skipping a couple of chapters and moving directly into chapter 6, after the sequences where Hiro and Ichigo tried piloting together and failed, we get a meeting between the two that goes a bit differently than it did in the anime, where Ichigo actually gives encouragement and reassurance to Hiro that he was the one that piloted Strelitzia, even despite her hurt feelings that she wasn't able to pilot with him herself. And if you remember the anime, you'll actually notice that a lot of this dialogue was in the anime, her saying that he was able to pilot Strelitzia, they would have been goners if he wasn't there, but in the anime, this dialogue is actually said to everyone in the group except Hiro when they had their meeting. Just an interesting distinction that actually gives a little bit more likability likability to Ichigo that she was willing to comfort him and put aside her hurt feelings. Later on in this same chapter, we start getting into some more interesting changes. The scene where Hiro and Zero Two are talking to each other in this area and then continue to visit the city is actually replaced entirely with a conversation between Zero Two and Mitsuru. We see Mitsuru overlooking Hiro as he works on training, which I like because it ties into Mitsuru's connection and jealousy of Hiro, wanting to be like him and eventually surpass him. It's in this scene where we actually get Mitsuru's request to pilot with Zero Two, which she ends up denying. Also, I know I said I wasn't going to mention shuffled scenes, but they actually do something pretty interesting with this Hiro and Zero Two visiting the city scene. During this first battle with the Klaxosaurs, they strictly forbid Hiro from piloting with Zero Two because 1, he's not an official parasite yet, and 2, they don't know what will happen. And so they use this pretense of not being allowed to go into the battle as a reason for Zero Two to take Hiro into the city as a way of making it to the hangar and Strelitzia, as a way of breaking out, until they eventually get caught, which I found a bit more interesting than Zero Two just randomly wanting to go into the city. Now let's move into chapter 9, and this is where we start getting into the major changes. During the scene of Squad 13's desperation in their first battle, needing Strelitzia to come back them up, you'll recall that in this scene is when Hiro relinquished piloting Strelitzia to Mitsuru because he was afraid of potentially fucking it up and costing his friends' lives. Well, in the manga, he begins to say this until a memory of Naomi flashes into his head, reminding him that he's resolved himself not to run away from his problems ever again. It's here where we branch off completely from the anime and Hiro changes his mind. He's determined to pilot with Zero Two no matter what, and continues telling Mitsuru that he doesn't know the risks of piloting with her and that it could end up very badly for him. It's during the following sequence where they basically combine the events from not only episode 4, but even parts of episode 6 as well, into the context of episode 3. Hiro triumphantly piloting a FranXX and Ichigo being happy yet jealous of the implications of that, Hiro pushing past the pain of piloting with Zero Two and with the help of the squad delivering the final blow, and of course the entire monologue afterwards about Zero Two being double-edged wings that will allow him to fly at least one more time. It's a very strange mix and almost feels like an alternate universe of sorts, but it does remove a lot of plot elements such as Mitsuru's critical condition for the next few episodes, or Hiro confessing his feelings for Zero Two and then eventually breaking out together. More on that later though. Skipping ahead again quite a bit to chapter 12, the following events here more or less play out as they did in episode 5, although it wouldn't be Kentaro if he didn't inject that toe love Rue flavor in there, and we get a little Hiro dream sequence as he contemplates the warnings he's gotten about Zero Two until waking to find that he was groping Zero Two in his sleep. Definitely projecting Rito and Momo there. Moving along to the very next chapter, chapter 13, we see a scene with APE where we actually have extra orders not seen in the anime, sending 9 Alpha to oversee the kissing between Plantation 13 and 26, and make sure it's successful since they have no intention to let Hiro pilot with Zero Two anymore. And unlike in the anime where he just makes a random cameo at the end of episode 6, it's in this chapter where he actually just shows up on the character's doorstep. What's really interesting, however, is that this is where they decide to insert the scene of Ichigo and 9 Alpha meeting for the first time, and his warning to her about Zero Two's curse and how many stamens she's really killed. You'll recall that this is a plot element that they introduce in episode 12, and yet the manga is inserting this into what would essentially be episode 5. It's very interesting to be planting those seeds of doubt into Ichigo's mind this early in the story, when Zero Two and Ichigo have multiple bonding moments in between now and her eventual betrayal. It's in this same chapter where we have the shower scene from episode 4 shuffled into, and the moved around placement here is actually surprisingly important because if you recall, the shower scene originally took place in episode 4 before Hiro actually ended up piloting with Zero Two again, whereas now that it's taking place after they have piloted, Hiro has already contracted the disease or curse, and Zero Two comments on it, and they use this scene also as a replacement for the scene involving Hiro and Zero Two at the end of episode 5 at the river. Everything with Zero Two warning Hiro that the next time will be the third and supposed last ride he can have with her, and that if he wants to stop, now's the time to say it. All of that dialogue is combined and placed into into this shower scene as opposed to having a separate scene, so I guess they did a good job of merging those. Moving ahead to chapter 15, once again throughout this chapter we have various events from episode 5 shuffled around, like the sequences with Goro confronting Hiro about his disease, and the big Ichigo 02 conflict. However, this Ichigo 02 conflict is interesting because not only is it quote-unquote reskinned, so to speak, taking place in an entirely different area and context, but also a crucial element has been added here that wasn't in the original scene. We see 02 with her hair up, oh my god, I'm in love! No, but seriously, by the end of this scene, once Ichigo smacks 02, we see an additional element added. A quite big element, 9 Alpha appears, telling 02 that she won't be allowed to join the upcoming fight. This carries over into chapter 16, which is the most recently uploaded chapter as of the time of this recording. And remember when I mentioned that the hero chasing after 02 scene was cut from the previous chapters because of the way they rearranged it? Well, they end up placing that scene right here, as she's taken away on Papa's orders right before the big fight to protect the plantations while they're kissing. We don't get the resolution of Hiro chasing after her and them breaking out just quite yet, but it is natural to assume that we will get that next chapter. What's even more interesting than this, however, and something to speculate on, is the final scene. Strelitzia can no longer be used in this fight, so what alternative do they have? Well, exclusive to the manga it seems, 9 Alpha and his partner appear with their special FranXX unit and seem to be there to assist in the battle. How this will go and how their role in the battle will progress as we inevitably have Strelitzia join the fray will be very interesting to see, but that will have to wait for next time because that ends the significant changes that I could find throughout the manga chapters that we have so far. Overall, some very interesting changes, but generally speaking, the changes seen throughout are essentially just drastically shuffled around scenes, sometimes placed in different context and merged together. It definitely has this alternate universe vibe going for it, like I said, and I enjoy Kentaro's art style lending itself to the Darling story, but in general, this definitely feels like a lesser version of the anime itself, as it seems to be cutting corners in a lot of places. This does help the pacing at parts, and it does have a select few moments that I do prefer to the anime, but in general, it feels less cohesive and just more weird, I guess. Let me know if you guys have an interest in these comparison videos in the future, because I'd be more than willing to do a part 2 to this whenever we actually get more chapters. But as for now, that's been all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, let me know what you thought of these changes in the comments below, and feel free to tell me any other differences you think were important or interesting that I didn't mention here. If you enjoyed anything I had to say here, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my content in the future. And of course, as usual, have a great day.